Ethan did an oopsie. And who better to save him from this oopsie than the primo Italiano himself from Brazil? I swear some people will watch a few episodes of a show and make that their personality, which is like 90% of fucking Twitter. But him, it's like he watched The Sopranos and then said, I could be Italian. Like, you're not Italian though. The guy who said, you act Italian? I wouldn't recommend that. It's like Bad Baby. She watched 106 in Park a few times and I'm black. No, no, you're not. You're like the antithesis of black. So anyway, what did Ethan do this time for the 5th time this year? So, TLDR, because, you know, our boy Def is not going to give you the context the way I'm going to. James Charles did a video on what I don't know, because I don't give a fuck. But the most interesting highlight in that video was that he had his Amazon page up, and it showed that he was buying adult diapers. He said he recently bought adult diapers. That's in his purchase history. I just find it ironic that the most interesting thing about James Charles' content, it has something to do with shit. But it was found out. People started clowning on him about it, including H3. His theory was that it's because he gets fucked in the ass, I guess. And I don't know. I guess Ethan still stuck in that 90s Howard Stern era. But he's now, his mindset is 90s Howard Stern, but his comedy is more late, it's like 2010s Howard Stern. It's kind of an identity crisis at the moment. So someone called in after they made a bunch of jokes, I guess we can say technically jokes, and they told him, hey, listen, be mindful of these things. Don't make assumptions. Don't assume. Felix Unger said don't assume.
You should never assume, because when you assume, you make an ass of you and me.
And Ethan proceeded to ask him a bunch of personal questions about his sex life.
I think the description of like throwing out that someone is just a bottom, like, because it just ascribing certain roles to people. If that's all I'm asking for, is just be a little more conscious of it.
So would you consider yourself a top or a bottom, or you don't do that the labels?
And I mean this with all peace and love and with respect, Ethan. It's none of your business.
But you have a preference, one way or the other.
But that's another dangerous assumption too.
Can I guess?
A lot of gay men don't.
Will you tell me if it's right, if I guess right?
No.
Well, you know what? I'm not gonna get into it, Matt. But we all know which one you prefer. It's
more, as long as you understand where I'm coming from.
To be honest, I don't really.
Anyway, how is your sex life?
And a bunch of people got upset and said, you know, he's being rude, being homophobic. I personally don't think he was being homophobic. He's just being an unfunny ass. And I still don't think he's homophobic, like, at all. But people got upset, including Dan, who had to jump to, here he comes to save the day.
People say it was gross and disappointing. Saying you can guess if Matt is a power bottom by his voice is so gross. But I was right. That was the point. Wasn't I? He admitted.
Yeah, of course you were right. And honestly, just so over these fucking people. Shut the fuck up! Shut up! It's a fucking entertaining show. Shut the fuck up.
Someone says, I don't know what's up.
So disappointing.
Someone said,
grow up. Jesus fucking Christ.
Dan.
I don't know what's up with Ethan today, but something's off. Bad vibes this episode.
Shut the fuck up. Unsubscribe. Go away. Jesus Christ.
Just came in. I gotta defend my boy Ethan by snapping and getting my real feelings about the audience out. And he says he apologizes and said it was an overreaction. But how often do we see that with a lot of big creators where they attack the audience and say shit like that? Hey, you don't like what we do? Don't watch, motherfucker. Fuck you, basically. You know? And it's because they know that they can be replaced. Hassan does this all the fucking time. So that's the mindset. And I don't know why people give these people money for treating them like shit, but it's whatever. At the very least, Dan apologized. Hassan doesn't think he doesn't. Hassan can literally fucking snap a child's neck and still think he's in the right for it. He'll never admit he's fucking wrong because, you know, God forbid he has the balls that God gave him. So all this went down. They apologized on Twitter. They came back again on the next podcast. They apologized again. And yeah, he had all the the whole PR team. He doesn't even need to buy a PR team. He has the Three Stooges in the booth. Since this one's the fattest one, I'll call him Curly. And this is the next one, Star Killer, still stuck in the Xbox 360 era apparently. I'll call him Larry, and there's the lead one, Mo. The Three Stooges, the three sycophants here. And if you're wondering about Shemp, we'll get to him in a second. So in comes our boy Dennis Feitosa, Saint Pablo, as it were. Yes, he has a rapper alter ego called Saint Pablo, and this description of it is pure gold. Especially that sentence right there. My God, it's like art imitating life. So then Dennis the Menace, Shemp, Saint Pablo, whatever the fuck, he comes in and he tries to defend Ethan.
Anyway, folks, moving on to Ethan Klein. A few days ago, some fans of the H3 podcast got upset with Ethan because of a phone call between Ethan and a fan of the podcast where they discussed being a bottom, and some people got upset with Ethan because of some of the questions that Ethan was asking. They also thought that Ethan was rude to the caller, and then later on in the podcast, Ethan and the crew realized that some people were commenting negatively about the situation on Reddit, and Ethan addressed some of the comments live.
I think some people are very sensitive about these issues, which is fine. But I don't think you should subject yourself to experiencing so much
all the time.
pain on a weekly basis. Like you're suffering through this show.
However, after the show, Ethan ended up apologizing on Twitter, but that didn't really resolve the situation because over the next couple of days, people continued to express their discontent.
So right off the bat, he's like leaving out comments. There's a reason why I had that little preamble before that, explaining all the things that happened, all that stuff. Because he doesn't explain a lot of it. He just kind of ignores a lot of what people are talking about. The only part he plays from that inciting incident is the fact that Ethan's telling people they're too offended. He doesn't play the things that Ethan was asking that caller. He doesn't play Dan losing his fucking mind during that stream. He doesn't play any of that. He doesn't play none of it. So he just plays whatever makes Ethan look good. What makes Ethan look best. And I will say, I cut him some slack the first time around. He mentioned that he also did a video about the James Charles diaper thing, and I cut him some slack. I'm like, I don't know when H3 did his stream and when Dennis did his video. I don't know when this happened, so maybe he must have missed it. I wouldn't be shocked if it turns out that it happened. He uploaded afterwards, and hours after that. I wouldn't be shocked at all, but I will cut him some slack and say, you know what? Okay, maybe he missed that. Now, the day afterwards where he missed it, well, okay, now that's a little suspicious, my guy. And then he decides to address it, but he decides to fall flat on his goddamn face. It is, oof. Okay, I love it.
So at the beginning of the latest episode of the H3 podcast, Ethan apologized again, and then he explained some of his thoughts around this whole situation.
Having said all that, which I genuinely feel, and especially, I was very insensitive to the caller, the whole pushing, the comment specifically where I was like, I could tell what you are based on your voice or whatever. Very, very gross and bad, okay? Like, I totally acknowledge that.
People are also mad at Dan because some of his comments, and this is what he had to say.
I think I overreacted. I don't know. It was just a mood thing, and like you said, it really wasn't even about that particular thing. But I mean, anybody that frequents our subreddit or goes into the comment section of YouTube knows what you're talking about, and it gets exhausting to just feel like you're
every week. People are saying you're not good enough.
People are gunning
be better.
For you. Yeah, so
be better.
Yeah,
it's like I'm trying.
Yeah, and I was trying to stand up for you a little bit.
Now, some folks were also upset and speculating that Dan was making fun of the caller later on in the podcast, and this is what Dan had to say about that.
The other criticism that I have been getting, which is really the reason that I was like, you know what, fuck this whole Twitter thing, is that I, at one point during the show, was mocking the caller's lisp. I don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
That did not happen.
That did not happen.
Dan then explains that he wasn't mocking the caller who appeared on the show 2 hours earlier. He was just doing a generic whiner type voice.
That's another thing I forgot to mention. Apparently he was like supposedly mocking someone's lisp. I thought maybe that was the thing, but then I thought, oh wait, this is hours later? He couldn't have been talking about if this was hours after, he could not have been talking about the caller. Unless the caller was the one that was directly calling him out. then he could not have been talking about that guy. I don't like either one of these people. They're fucking douchebags, especially Ethan. Douchebags. But I'm not gonna call them all sorts of isms and phobics based on some flimsy shit. Like, I'm not gonna do that. You know? If they are saying some homophobic shit, I will say, yeah, they're being pretty homophobic. But they're not here. They're just being and the problem with Ethan is that he's trying to be old Ethan while also being new Ethan, but he doesn't realize that he's trying to be old Ethan with new Ethan audience. You have old Ethan audience left your ass a long time ago. They're gone. All the old Ethan audience, the people who had your back when Matt Haas was suing your ass, they're gone. If you want proof of that, how many of those same people had your back when Ryan Kavanaugh was suing you this time around, about a couple of months ago? How many people had your back then? How many of those same people were with you? Like, you see what I'm saying? So he's trying to be old Ethan, old Ethan humor with new Ethan's audience, and it's not working. It's clearly it's conflicting shit here, right? Like, this is that shit he was saying. Old Ethan. That's old Ethan humor. A lot of it wasn't very funny, but it's still that old Ethan style humor. But he's saying it to around new Ethan audience. I'm not there anymore, buddy. I'm sorry. I was there a couple years ago, but I ain't down with the sickness anymore with you, buddy. So Dennis continues to make this much worse.
Anyway, folks, now the whole podcast has basically apologized twice for this whole situation. First, Ethan's apology, then they did this more in-depth apology, which I recommend that you go and watch because they go into a bunch of other things that are related to it. They respond directly to some tweets and comments that were made about the situation, but I think it's important to contextualize this whole situation because people seem to be upset about some off-color jokes that were made about being a bottom on a comedy podcast during a phone call between the host and a viewer, to the point where they've been literally trying to cancel the host and the crew and the podcast itself for the last 3.5 days. Meanwhile, people like Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, Ben's company, The Daily Wire, Republican politicians are working in a concerted effort to label the LGBT community as pedophiles, as groomers, as predators, and to even go as far as to try to completely erase them from American society.
How the fuck we get here?
Now, while people are justified to feel upset about jokes about being a bottom, I would hope that they also feel equally, perhaps even more upset and dedicate more energy towards fighting back.
Now dig up, stupid.
Now you see why I labeled it, Dennis goes, or Death Noodles goes full Jeffree Star. That's what I'm going to call this video. But if you see it there and you're like, what the fuck does that mean? You now see. Do we need a reminder, a refresher on what that means, what Jeffree Star has done in the past year?
I would just like to say that James Charles, I'm very sorry. Anything else that you guys want to know, it will never be spoken about. You can ask other people. I, just like last year, have fully removed myself. And did I get swept up into the bullshit again? Of course I did. And for that, I'm forever embarrassed of. Now, Breonna Taylor still has no justice. Black trans women are being murdered every day and the news is silent. Elijah McClain has no justice. And the countless other people who are murdered every single day while everyone just goes about their business like nothing's happening.
I will say to Dennis what I said about Jeffree Star. I don't know if I did a video on this or not, but it's the same logic applies. We can do both of those things at the same exact time. This is not a Telltale's game where we have to pick a side. We can go the Ethan path or the Republican path. Oh, you picked the Ethan path. Ethan will remember that. No. We can do both. We can call out all the crazy shit Ethan said, which again, I don't think was that horrifically bad, but while also going at, the Don't Say Gay. He says that as if like the world stopped when this Ethan controversy happened, and like we just forgot about that bill that's been like talked about for like the last month and a half, maybe even more than that. But when it first got announced, I don't know how long ago that was, but when it got announced, people have been heavily against that bill and nonstop calling it out. When Disney was supposedly in support of that bill, people were calling out Disney like fucking crazy. It's still happening. Even pre and post Will Smith slap, it's been happening. People have been talking about that. People have been talking about the bill. People have been talking about the invasion of Ukraine. He acts as if we can't do all these he acts like we can't multitask, right? Like, well, you did this one thing, you're not doing this one. We're working on that. Thank you, Dennis. So we appreciate you helping everyone out, try to remember these things, even though you're doing so for completely with ulterior motives. Let's be for real here. And again, and now that I think about it, he did call out Jeffree Star for doing this as well.
Now, Breonna Taylor still has no justice. Black women are being murdered every day and the news is silent. Elijah McClain has no justice, and the countless other people who are murdered every single day while everyone just goes about their business like nothing's happening.
Whoa, I got whiplash from that. That literally came out of nowhere. But let's be honest, the best thing someone can do in an apology video is literally bring up something about and justice that is completely unrelated to what they're doing. Basically shoving a red herring into the conversation in the most ham-fisted way to cause a distraction. Instead of apologizing to the black women like Makeup Shayla, who he said he was going to into the ground, or Jackie Aina, who he called a horrible name. When are people going to understand that it's just much easier to pretend like you care? Performative activism is exactly what it sounds like. It's fun because you get to perform instead of actually doing something. That's why Jeffree couldn't even bother to put a donation link or any type of information about BLM or any of the causes he mentioned in his description, because the weight of pressing the Control-C, Control-V keys on his keyboard are far too great for Jeffree's fingers.
The main difference between Deaf Noodles doing this and Jeffree Star is Jeffree Star's thing was that whole Breonna Taylor thing, and that was completely unrelated to what Jeffree Star was talking about initially. The apology in general, that was completely unrelated, and it was like, where did this come from? At least Deaf Noodles' comment and Deaf Noodles' deflection, there's a little deflection tactic here. At least it's vaguely tied to the subject, right? To the topic. It's vaguely tied to it. But it's like, why are we talking about... I mean, yeah, sure, we could do that too. I'm not sure why... What's your point here, my guy? I mean, this all gets worse for Dennis because his whole audience is calling him out for this. And this whole deflection tactic and shit. I mean, this wasn't the first time his audience called him out for something. And they have done so several times, apparently. Between his thing with Papa Gut and his constant Keemstar videos. I mean, like to like quartering on Brie Larson levels. You know, when quartering made like 100 videos or so on Brie Larson, it's like that insane. But this time it's like, yeah, definitely this time. You know, I mean, he completely botched the Papa Gut thing, and he admitted to that. But this here especially is like, wow, this. If you'll permit me, I'd like to pull up this dead meme from out of the ground like a Urukai real quick.
This ain't it, Chief!
Now, a few days ago, I said that the slap was just an opiate for the masses. It was just a temporary distraction to make us all forget that absolutely nothing had changed. Well, I can tell you for a fact that things are getting worse because this is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signing the Don't Say Gay bill. This is just the beginning of the pushback against gay rights. Now, don't get me wrong, we can spend all day discussing how hurtful some jokes are, and hopefully we can spend just as much time and more energy preventing civil rights from being eroded in this country because, hey, if you can't even say gay, then the bottom jokes aren't going to sound that bad.
Shut the fuck up.
Like, and listen, I really wish some of these people, these news channels, drama channels, would be more honest and say their bias. You know, like Philip DeFranco said he was a non-biased news source. He is absolutely lying at this point. That mask has come off a long time ago. Memology 101 said the same shit. Speaking of memology, he's kind of indirectly tied to this because he used to call Ethan and Markiplier and Jacksepticeye for being snakes. I mean, Ethan turned out to be an actual snake, but his complaint about those three was that they didn't stand by him over the N-word controversy when they were like criticizing that he said it, and it's just like, I don't wait. So they should. So they're not allowed to say he was wrong for that. You know, and even PewDiePie came out and said, yeah, he was wrong, and that your friends can criticize each other. That's what friendship is. You're allowed to you should be able to criticize friends. And it's like, and Memeology was talking about being unbiased. Well, now he's gone full Fox News at this point. And now you got this dude. I mean, he, like, at least tell us you're being biased. Like, it's blatantly obvious, but at the very least, because I mean, Ethan has the best PR team money can buy. The Three Stooges and Shemp right here. This is his best line of defense. This guy, who is deflected from Ethan's problems by going, "Hey, look at this other worse shit," as if we have a single track mind, a one track mind, you know. You won't believe this, but the human brain can do multiple things when they put a mind to it, and they have done so. I would only recommend Ethan get a colonoscopy as soon as possible to see how many face prints are lodged in his colon right now. Because between his staff, I mean, they're paid to kiss his ass, so that's fine. But this brown noser isn't paid. Is he paid in Teddy Fresh merch or some shit? What is your deal? Like, there's a lot of objective truths to this, right? And he's like dodging all of them just to protect his guy and make him seem better than he is. The day after he posted that video about the James Charles diaper thing, and he didn't talk about the Ethan thing at all, that day I was like, bite the bullet and just talk about the Ethan thing. Come on, man. Don't puss out. Now I watch this clip and I'm like, man, you were better off shutting your fucking mouth. Maybe I should be careful what I wish for, okay? He should have just shut his mouth at that point. He'd been better off not saying anything at all. But this is worse. This is the worst. We'll see what he says tomorrow, because today he didn't upload a video, I guess. We'll see what he says tomorrow. I cannot wait for Saturday to see how him address this, or if he addresses it at all. But regardless, he has a whole day and a half to address this. I mean, assuming he's busy today, which is why he probably didn't upload. But he has a whole day and a half to address this. If not, hey, okay then, my guy.
And now, palate cleanser.